All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Jennifer Jones. I'm the Deputy State Director for Communications for the Bureau of Land Management, Idaho State Office in Boise. We really appreciate you joining us today. We know how valuable your time is, so we're going to get right to it and keep things moving very quickly today. We have a great lineup of presenters that have a lot of very important information to share. We're planning for them to finish by 11:45 a.m. at the latest. We will hold off on answering questions until the end so that we can stay on track. However, you can enter questions into the Q&A using the button at the bottom of your screen at any time. I am going to input our presenters' names, titles, and organizations into the chat as they are speaking. We will also post them on a slide at the end of the presentation. If you need to contact them for additional information after the news conference today, please let me know and I will connect you with them. I will also pop my contact information into the chat. As we mentioned in the media advisory, this news conference is being recorded and will be available on the SharePoint site this afternoon. If you have any trouble accessing that, please let me know. Shortly after this news conference, we'll send out a news release with statistics and more details on the information that will be covered today, and we will send that to you directly as well as post it on the SharePoint site. With that, we're going to begin with Dennis Strange, who is going to explain why we're having this news conference and sort of set the stage for the rest of the presenters. Dennis?
All right, good morning. As Jennifer mentioned, my name is Dennis Strange. I'm the State Fire Management Officer for the BLM here in Idaho. You know, what we're trying to do today is open a dialogue and try to get some messaging out and some understanding so that we as fire professionals and public make sure we're working together to address the extraordinary circumstances that we're facing this year. So thank you for your time and for being part of that team to help getting these messages out. You know, this year we're looking at some elements that are certainly going to provide some challenges to us this year. We're looking at long-term drying, which you'll hear more about with some other presenters. We're looking at a lot of stress on the system. You know, normally or typically we would see activity in one part of the country or another. But as we look at our outlooks and look at our activity to date, it's very widespread, and that certainly puts a stress on the system that everyone has to help absorb. We're looking at multi-year compounding conditions. The conditions that we have this year certainly are building on what we had last year, and that certainly provides a different element as to how we're addressing the need that's out there. And another good point that has an effect on all of this, but is a good element in the rest of the world is how many public users we have out there enjoying their public lands. We are excited to see the use that is out there, but we know that comes with an impact in many different ways. And so combine all those elements certainly provides an opportunity for increased activity and increased preparedness that we need to have to address our challenges this year. So something that we want to look at is we understand that preparation is key. All of our land agencies have been working together to make sure that we are being prepared as we can. And a lot of that is making sure that we're addressing the needs as we go along, such as building fuels breaks, removing hazardous fuels from the communities that we serve, using prescribed fire and restoring fire into its natural role. We know that not all fire is bad. But we also understand that the implications of having folks in the public lands and the fire that comes about because of our natural circumstances provides a lot of challenges. And so we want to open that dialogue. We want to make sure that our public, our team members, and that they understand what they can do to help reduce the threat of wildfire, but also make sure what they can do in case of wildfire does occur. Our number one priority will always be public and firefighter safety. And we believe that making sure that everyone has good information and is prepared for the nature and the world that we live in, we're going to have the best possible outcome. So with that, I'll turn it back over to some of our specialists, and they'll be giving you some additional information on this particular year.
Thank you so much, Dennis. With that, we will go next to Nick Nosler, who's going to discuss the new fire outlook for Idaho and the other states that the National Interagency Fire Center located in Boise is publishing today. Nick.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, as Nick Nosler, one of the meteorologists here at the National Interagency Coordination and Fire Center in Boise, Idaho. And I'll discuss the rest of the fire season outlook for the Western United States with a primary focus on Idaho. Our current situation, we're pretty busy. We went to PL4 about 10 days ago. I believe it was June 22nd, which is on a scale of 1 to 5, so we're at the second highest level. We have active large fires in every western region, and fire season is ongoing. You can see most of those dots, which are large fires in the southwest, but we're expecting fire season to start to shift west and north due to the southwest monsoon beginning to start up. Start out by taking a look at the U.S. Drought Monitor. You can see across much of the western United States, actually over 90% of the western United States is currently in drought, with over half of it in the highest two categories of extreme and exceptional drought. That drought also extends across the northern plains and into the Great Lakes, but much of this drought is expanded and intensified over the last handful of months with some of the longer term drought over the southern half of the western United States. Here's kind of the snapshot of the West. As I mentioned, almost 91% of the West is in drought. Almost 56% are in the highest two categories. You compare this to a year ago, we've over doubled the amount of area in drought, and we went from 2% of the western United States in extreme and exceptional drought to, like I said, nearly 56% of the region in drought. So quite of a substantial increase and expansion of drought over the last year, and especially in the last handful of months across parts of the Northwest, Northern Rockies, and Northern Great Basin. In particular for Idaho, this time last year, we had very little drought in the state, less than 10%. Now, nearly 90% of the state is in drought, with one relatively small area of exceptional drought in kind of south central Idaho. But that's really, much of this drought is intensified this spring and started this winter. But like I said, warm and dry spring has really exacerbated the drought conditions across Idaho. So looking forward for the next month, this is from the Climate Prediction Center of NOAA. You can see the above normal conditions that are forecast for temperatures are centered right over Idaho. That's likely to continue, and a good part of the western United States is expected to have above normal temperatures for the month of July, with below normal precipitation there across the Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies, and Northern Plains into the Western Great Lakes. So warm and dry over at least the next month for Idaho is expected. Looking at July, August, and September, much of the United States are expected to have above normal temperatures, and you can see Pacific Northwest and pretty much the entire Rocky Mountains are expected to have below normal precipitation there on your right, also extending into the high plains and northern parts of the Great Basin. So warm and dry is the outlook for Idaho for this upcoming fire season, with the monsoon starting to move moisture into parts of the Intermountain West, extending out of the southwest and into the northern Rockies and northwest over the next couple of months, which will likely increase lightning ignitions. Here's the drought outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. We're expecting at least a normal monsoon for the southwest in July and potentially into August, which will improve some of those drought conditions. But the rest of the western United States, drought is likely to continue, if not intensify, and there's a good chance that it expands to the rest of the 10% of this region that is not currently in drought. So not a lot of good news going forward, but this is typically our dry time of year. So what I'm about to show you is a significant fire potential outlook. A significant fire is defined as any large fire that requires resources from outside the immediate area, usually requiring incident management teams to manage and suppress those fires. These are posted the first of every month. It actually was posted this morning about an hour or two ago, and is forecasting above normal or below normal significant fire potential for the next handful of months. Really good detailed discussion with a lot of input from our geographic area meteorologists and fire analysts go into this, and it's great for severity requests and resource planning with allocations and extensions. So for July, above normal significant fire potential is forecast for the entire state of Idaho. But as was mentioned earlier, our partners across the Western United States and neighbors are going to have above normal potential. Most of them are in July and August and lingering into September, which we'll see here shortly. But most of the mountains and foothills of California, all the Pacific Northwest, Northern Great Basin, much of Northern Rockies, through Wyoming into the Northern Plains expected to have above normal significant fire potential. Most of this due to the ongoing drought and also the likely increase of lightning across the region as the southwest monsoon begins to ramp up across the southwestern United States. Moving into August, Idaho still above normal, the entire state. You can see most of the West Coast and Northern Rockies as well too. So no really relief in sight in terms of the potential for significant fires through August, especially the northern half of the West and West Coast as well. Moving into September, there is a chance that we could return to La Nina conditions sometime this fall. If that occurs, we would see some more storm tracks across the northern half of the Intermountain West, which could bring an end to fire season. However, given the potential that we have and what we've seen in other years where we've had a lot of fire on the ground in late summer, it takes a fair amount of rain and snow and cold to really slow us down. So lingering above normal potential there for much of Idaho, southern Montana, Wyoming, and a good part of the West Coast. One thing that we also have to keep an eye on for at least the West Coast is offshore wind events will start happening in September. And then by October, much of the Western United States will return to normal significant fire potential, although offshore wind-prone areas in California are likely to retain above normal significant fire potential. So kind of in summary, more than half of the West is in extreme or exceptional drought, with 90% of the West in drought. 80% of Idaho is in drought. This is over 5 times the drought area of this time last year, actually more than double, and then the higher categories 5 to 10 times as more. Idaho is forecast to have above normal significant fire potential July through September, likely peaking in July and August. But one thing I always like to caveat, you saw a lot of red on those maps. The potential is there, but there is a reason we use potential. You need critical fire weather patterns to realize this potential, and that's one thing that we can't really forecast out more than days or even a week or two. So our fingers are crossed that we don't have those critical fire weather patterns to realize some of the potential that is out there. And that's all I have. I'll send it back over to Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Nick. Our next 3 presenters are going to talk about ways that Idaho residents and visitors can help us respond to the very challenging wildfire conditions and the potential that we're facing for the next few months by preventing human-caused wildfires. We're going to start with Josh Harvey from the Idaho Department of Lands. Josh?
Thanks, Jennifer. Like Jen said, my name is Josh Harvey. I'm the Fire Management Chief for the Idaho Department of Lands. Good morning, everybody. Like many of you, I look forward to the 4th of July and celebrating our country's Independence Day. Normally, I purchase a healthy supply of fireworks for my family's enjoyment and celebrations. Here's different. The extreme heat, the lack of early spring moisture, and the stress that the grasses and brush in our forests are feeling right now has caused some tinderbox conditions out there in the wildland. I, for one, will not be celebrating Independence Day with fireworks this year and doing my part in taking those precautions. Many of you have probably already purchased your fireworks and in one way or another are planning on utilizing those fireworks for your celebrations. I have a couple of very serious things that I would like you to please consider. On nearly all of our public lands, fireworks are illegal to set off. On many of our public lands, they are illegal to even possess. If you have those in your possession, you are in violation of the law. Know where you are before you recreate and check with your local authorities on current bans and restrictions. If you are in an area that is currently allowing fireworks and fireworks celebrations, I would strongly encourage you to not have an independent celebration, but to go to your local public display provided by a county, provided by your local city or municipality. Have water on site in the event that you do plan to hold your own celebration. Have extra friends and family in place with water readily available. And please utilize large graveled areas, paved areas such as parking lots or other authorized places for displays of fireworks. Please ensure there are no flammable materials in those areas or even near those areas. Fireworks can very easily go awry. Many of us have used them for years and we've all had oopsie moments. They can land anywhere and everywhere, and oftentimes they're outside your immediate area of control. It may feel safe to launch fireworks over bodies of water like rivers, lakes, ponds, but I can promise you, and many of you have experienced this, those aerial fireworks can land anywhere and they can travel great distances. Please do not use aerial fireworks anywhere in this state. It's a personal request. All those fireworks put our firefighters and our public at risk. The sparks and showers from those fireworks, they burn far hotter than normal campfires, lighters, and matches. Wildland fuels ignite on fire at temperatures less than 500 degrees. Most fireworks burn in excess of 2,000 degrees. With that, final request again, please recreate responsibly. Protect our firefighters, protect our natural resources, know where you're at, and be prepared. I want you to enjoy your Independence Day and celebration, but please be careful. With that, thank you very much. Jennifer, I turn back to you.
Thank you, Josh. Next, we will go to Ben Newbern with the USDA Forest Service Intermountain Region. Ben?
Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning. My name is Ben Newbern. I am the Director of Fire and Aviation Management for the Intermountain Region of the U.S. Forest Service. And I'm here on behalf of the Intermountain Region and the Northern Rockies region of the Forest Service that provides oversight to the national forest in the state of Idaho. Last year, fire season highlighted urgent challenges and opportunities that we face, and we persevered thanks to the tireless efforts of thousands of wildland firefighters from across the nation and you all as our partners. Nearly 9 out of 10 wildfires are human caused. Last season, we saw a dramatic increase in visitation to our public lands, resulting in a significant increase in human caused fires, including abandoned and escaped campfires. These fires are 100% preventable. As examples, last year on the Sawtooth National Forest in south central Idaho, we observed 342 unattended campfires. Similarly, on the Boise National Forest, north of Boise, Idaho, we witnessed 384 unattended campfires. In northern Idaho, we experienced over 100 human-caused fires. Again, these are all preventable fires. Make sure as you go out to visit and recreate on your public lands that you're aware of restrictions and whether or not you're permitted to have a campfire when camping. Restrictions can be found at the website www.idahofireinfo.com. Make sure that you have a shovel and water with you and that your fire is attended at all times. When leaving, make sure you extinguish your fire using the drown, stir, and feel method. Remember also that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. A few other useful websites to enjoy your recreation opportunities on your public lands safely are idahofirewise.org, Recreate Responsibly, and and beoutdoorsafe.org. Thank you, and together we can prevent unwanted human-caused fires. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Ben. Next up is Jared Jablonski with the BLM Boise District. Jared.
Hello, everyone. Can you see me?
Not yet. We can
There
hear
we go.
There we go.
Just took a second. Hello, I'm Jared Jablonski, Fire Information Officer with the Boise District Bureau of Land Management. Today, I wanted to talk to you about a couple of our major fire causes for the area, the BLM area in Southwest Idaho. That is also an issue for our partner districts of the Twin Falls District as well as the Idaho Falls District. And those two causes would be vehicle-related fires as well as shooting-related fires. So over the last 10 years in the Boise District alone, we had approximately 132 vehicle-related fires out of 985 total fires. So we're looking at a 14% of fires being vehicle-related fires, which is a pretty large group because it also incorporates trailers as well as UTVs and off-road vehicles. So there are a few things that you can do out there to help prevent vehicle-related fires. And the first thing that you should be doing is, if you're out traveling during the hot fire season, is checking your tires. You want to inspect your tires, make sure your tread is good, make sure there's no nicks or damage to your tires, because if you were to get a flat tire, the rim can easily hit the road and ignite a wildfire, especially if the vegetation is close to the edge of the roadways. And of course, along those same lines, you're going to want to make sure that you have the appropriate tire pressure for your particular tire. Low tires can also lead to a blowout or potentially a spark off of the rim. So definitely want to check your tire pressures before you head out there for the summer. Another major vehicle cause that we see that can be prevented is if folks would just go around their vehicle and do a little walk around, check underneath your vehicle under the undercarriage there and make sure that there is nothing dragging that could cause sparks on the roadway, especially something like your muffler. Even if it's not dragging, if it's hanging too low to the ground, if you go over a bump or something, you could easily hit the ground with that metal and create sparks and cause wildfires. A third major cause we see a lot when folks are having issues out there is not doing proper vehicle maintenance. So especially when it's so hot, over 100 degrees like it's been recently, when you're out driving along the freeways in the rangelands, if you have an issue from your car overheating due to not having enough fluids in there, when you pull over the side of the road, it's really important. First of all, it's very important to have the proper amount of fluids, but if you do have an overheating issue or any kind of vehicle issue, it's really important to try to find, if possible, a place to pull over to the side of the road that is free of any kind of vegetation. The vegetation is very dry. The undercarriage of your vehicle can get very hot, especially in the muffler area, and can easily ignite a wildfire. Also, when traveling off-road, if you're out driving to campsites or something, or if you're out on a UTV, it's really important to stay on trails and road systems that are managed. You don't want to be cutting across the dry vegetation. The undercarriage of your vehicle or your UTV can easily ignite a wildfire, so that's also extremely important. When it comes to trailers, the main issue we see with trailers would be properly securing your chains. Extremely important to make sure that your chains are secured correctly and not hanging too low or dragging on the ground. Chains have started numerous wildfires along roadway systems and can start multiple wildfires as you're driving. You can just continue to create those sparks and really cause an issue as far as wildfires. Now moving to shooting. There's many restrictions on shooting on federal lands for the different agencies, but I'm going to speak specifically to the Bureau of Land Management here in Idaho. We have a prevention order that comes out May 10th and runs through October 20th. This prevention order is in place because the issues that we've seen from shooting that have caused wildfires in the past have made it so that we need to have this order in place to make sure that that doesn't occur again. So it's perfectly legal to target shoot on federal lands, BLM lands, but these restrictions are in place for a reason, and that is to prevent wildfires. So during the summer times, in that time period I discussed, it's very important not to use tracer ammunition, steel core ammunition, also incendiary ammunition, and it is prohibited to shoot at use exploding targets or to use any kind of explosive device while out there. And that's because in the past those have all caused fires. So we've seen over the last 10 years here in the Boise district, we've seen 92 shooting fires out of the 985. So you're looking at a 10% of our fires are shooting related. So I would advise in the summer times when it's hot and dry, and especially if it's windy, to go to a shooting range if you need to shoot, or to hold off to a different day. And if you do end up going out there shooting, there are some tips you can follow to help prevent causing a wildfire, and that is always shoot in an area free of dry vegetation, extremely important. Shoot in an area free of any kind of rocks. The prevention order also prohibits shooting against any kind of metal targets during that time frame. So you don't want to be doing that. You want to shoot at appropriate targets, and then also bring a shovel and water and a fire extinguisher in case you do start something, in order to maybe attempt to put it out before it grows too quickly. So I believe that's all I have, Jennifer. So I'll give it back to you.
All right, thank you, Jared. And our last speaker today is Brett Van Papegum with Idaho Firewise, who's going to talk about ways that property owners can reduce the risk of wildfires to their homes and land. And this is very important because over the last 10 years, we've lost around 675 homes and other structures to wildfires in Idaho. Brett?
So thank you for having me. I'm, as Jennifer mentioned, Brett Van Papegum. I'm the Southern Idaho project manager for Idaho Firewise. Some steps that property owners can take to reduce the risk of wildfire to their homes and land, we would call creating some defensible space. And here we want to start with the home itself, which we call Zone 1, and removing debris from gutters and eaves and around the foundation immediately around the home. Here we also want to use gravel surrounding your home out to 5 feet. And keep in mind that patio furniture, cushions, and patio decor, common little items, can be fuel for a fire. We want to store firewood or other combustible items at least 30 feet away from structures. And decks, to keep decks either enclosed, screened, keeping underneath the deck cleaned out. And then as we move out away from the home a bit more, we call Zone 2, from 5 to 30 feet. Remove highly flammable plants such as conifers, shrubs, and trees like junipers, spruce, and arborvitae. And here we suggest using instead low-growing ground covers and plants with a high moisture content and low on oils, resins, and terpenes that cause plants to burn so readily and hot. So in this area, it's really a lot of maintenance, and we want to keep it lean, clean, and green. Then as we move further away, Zone 3 would be the area 30 feet to 100 feet extending from the home, and we want to remove any dead or dying plant materials and or ladder fuels that are like tall grasses or shrubs from below tree canopies, and keep tree canopies pruned up 6 to 10 feet from the ground. So we also, if we are out at a distance and we run into invasive grasses like cheatgrass and medusa head that are so common in our area, this is a good time to make sure that those are line trimmed down and rake up and remove all the material and dispose of it. So lastly, I think we should have a to-go bag, an evacuation plan, and be ready to go. So I manage this demonstration garden. I recommend folks to come out to the Idaho Botanical Garden and tour our Idaho Firewise demonstration garden, where we have hundreds of species that we've been testing for years for flammability. And as you can see, it is in our background and can be quite attractive and yet still provide a defensible space around your home. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you so much, Brett. So that brings us to the end of our presentations. And we want to make sure you're aware of the various sources of information about wildfires in Idaho. So I am going to I'm going to share my screen and pop a slide up. Bear with me for a minute, still getting used to Zoom. Okay, here we go. So we will leave this up and we are open to take some questions. So again, there's a couple of different ways to ask questions. One is you can enter the questions into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, or you can raise your hand and we will call on you and you'll receive a prompt to unmute yourself, and then you can ask a question verbally. And so if you would like to do that, you just click the raise hand on the bottom of your screen. I don't think we have any unanswered questions in the Q&A at this time.
We just got one, Jennifer.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Ken, go ahead.
So this is from Madison Hardy. Do we know how many fires were caused by fireworks gone awry last year? Have there been any recent large fires caused by fireworks in Idaho? And if we could start with Jared Jablonski on this one. Jared, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm just waiting for my video again here. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay. As far as large fires, the most recent one that I can think of caused by fireworks in the Boise area would have been the Table Rock fire. It didn't get extremely large, but it was definitely a very terrible fire to have. We lost one structure, could have lost a lot more. It was from, I believe it was a Roman candle type firework that someone had been messing around with up near Table Rock before the 4th of July. And it was definitely not in an area where it was illegal to use. It's an aerial fireworks, so it was legal anyway, but also the foothills has very specific fire restrictions that the city puts in place during the summer as well. So and then any large fires caused by fireworks, specifically I don't have any how many fires. Oh, I can look real quick for our area and give you the 10-year average. Give me 1 second. We definitely average a handful of them every year. There was a few years where we saw some spikes in the fireworks, but we continue to put time and effort into our prevention program in order to try to mitigate those. And so we've seen a little bit of a decrease in them, as well as the different having the different bans put in place on our different fireworks. So from 2010 to 2020, we had approximately 11 fires caused by fireworks. So not as big of numbers for our area as we see in vehicles or as well as shooting, but definitely one of our top 5 specific causes for the area.
Okay. Thank you, Jared. Next question is from Paul Schwedelson. Why does it seem like fire season is starting earlier this year compared to recent years? And that's probably a good question for Nick Nosler at the National Fire Center in Boise.
And thanks for your question. It's a great question. I think some of it has to do with the long-term drought that we're seeing across the western United States. So fuels are already kind of stressed. We've seen fuels that are generally 1 to 2 months ahead of schedule in terms of dryness. We've seen some improvement over the last week in parts of the Southwest, Colorado, and Southern Great Basin, but across much of California, the rest of the Great Basin, Northern Rockies, Northwest, we're generally about 1 month to 2 months ahead of schedule, essentially seeing near or peak values for fire danger right now. So I would say that's the main reason why we're seeing kind of an earlier start to fire season.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Sophia, how big were those 11 fires from fireworks? Were they all above a certain size? Jared, I think that one comes back to you.
Yes, so I don't have the numbers from in my chart here for the actual acreages on the fires. I think more importantly, fireworks fires tend to be fires that are in urban interface areas because that's where people tend to be letting them off or near campgrounds. So the real issue with fireworks fires is not only that they can grow big and damage all our resources out there, our grass and brush and trees and all the public lands that we love, but I think the real issue is that they tend to be near homes. They tend to be near where people live, so they can be very destructive fires, and they can be fires that could injure people. So I think really that's the thing that is most important to think about when you think about fires from fireworks.
Thanks, Jared. Okay, Ben Newburn is handling the question from, what's that? Hannah. Okay, does anybody else have any more questions on the participant side?
And again, as a reminder, if you would like to ask one verbally instead of popping into the Q&A, you can do that just by raising your hand at the bottom of the screen. Looks like Frankie Barnhill has her hand up. So Frankie, I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to send you, I'm going to try to unmute you here.
Great, I think I'm unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, thank you everybody. This has been really great information. I'm curious, you know, thinking ahead to July, late July and August, those images of the fire potential across, you know, much of the West. And we know that multiple fires across multiple states really can put a strain on firefighting resources. How confident is the agency and all the different agencies at this stage confident that if there's a fire that takes off in Idaho that may indeed endanger a community, but there are multiple fires in other states already endangering communities, basically, will we have enough resources? How concerned are you about that when it comes to people on the ground?
Frankie, that's a great question. I think if it's okay, we'll start with Dennis Strange here with the BLM to respond to that, and then see maybe if Ben Newburn wants to add on, and Josh with IDL as well.
Great.
Yeah, good question. And the biggest aspect we look at is our interagency system. No one agency goes through this fire season or fire year on their own. We have a very cohesive program that we can utilize each other's strengths and capabilities in a seamless fashion immediately. And so that's where we get a lot of our strength. So here in Idaho, we have multiple agencies that we work together. We have plans put in place before fires are happening, and we keep those going throughout the year. You couple that with our local cooperators, whether it be fire departments, whether it be our range fire protection associations or volunteer fire departments, and they add another aspect of capability and making sure we address that. Take that one more level, and we have a national system where we're able to tap into resources in other parts of the country that maybe aren't having the same activity that we're having at that point. And so we have a very scalable system that we're able to tap into to try to get those resources at the priority fires at the right time in a timely manner.
Thank you, Dennis. Ben, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, Dennis's response there was spot on, and the piece that I would add, and I think it's represented here with the representation you see at this media event, where we work together very closely, both at a local level and at a state level and at a national level, to respond to wildland fires, regardless of whose ownership or jurisdiction it is. It's very common that you'll see a rainbow-colored set of engines or resources on any one fire, and that really speaks to the interagency relationships that we have, particularly here in the state of Idaho. And I would encourage the public, as they are out and about and seeing their firefighters engaged in their work, to remember the work that they're doing, and again, taking heed of the messages that we're providing here today.
Jennifer, do you mind, could I ask one just follow-up question? Oh, was there one more person? Go ahead, Josh.
I was just gonna, yeah, I was gonna ask Josh Harvey to weigh in, then you bet, Frankie. Go, you can, you've got the floor for the Q&A until you're until you've got your questions answered.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's a great question, and I can only really reiterate what Ben and Dennis said, that interagency cooperation is the biggest part to how successful we are within the state, on the state scale, regional and national level. You know, speaking for the Department of Lands, we've taken extra steps with the support of the Land Board and the Governor's Office this year to bring on extra and additional resources to bolster our initial attack capabilities. And we brought on extra aircraft, extra engines, and extra crews just to increase our chances of success when those fires are small. But we make all of our resources and those extra folks available, that no matter what agency gets the big fire and who's busy, we share what we can with all of our neighbors. Without each other, our chances of success are pretty minimal. Thank you.
Thank you. And just, I have a slightly different topical question about prescribed burns this spring. How successful were folks across the many different agencies in doing prescribed burns in Idaho this particular year? Was this a good year for it? Was it not so great for it because of the conditions?
I'll go ahead and take a step at that first. So Frankie, you know, we do, each of our burns are very specific to that exact area and those exact conditions. And so no matter what type of year we're having, we always scrutinize every prescribed fire and make sure that we are within very strict parameters before we go forward with implementation of that burn. So for speaking for the BLM, did we have some successful prescribed fires this spring? Oh, we did. We did. We were able to watch our weather and watch our fuel moistures and make sure that we were in prescription and ready to do it successfully. We were successful, and we were able to reach those accomplishments. And so every year we're looking at it, you know, whatever nature throws us that spring or that fall for that matter. And if our conditions match, then we go forward with it. We certainly look at, you know, fire activity, what's going on, not only locally, but also nationally, and, you know, where are we at with resources, how stressed is the system, and that goes into our decision process as well to make sure we're making a good decision.
Thank you, Dennis.
Hey, Dennis, Ben or Josh, did you want to add on to that?
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, sure thing, Josh, and then you can take a shot at it. So for the Forest Service, we were able to conduct a limited number of prescribed fires in Idaho this year. This spring, we certainly were limited by the conditions. As you can see, the drought conditions throughout the state are affecting our ability to conduct prescribed fire, and we're very, very aware of those conditions. And as Dennis was mentioning, you know, there's prescriptions, there's a lot of factors that go into our ability to conduct prescribed fire operations that we simply weren't able to meet this year. We do have those plans in place, and we'll be looking for opportunities in the future, this fall, next spring, to continue to implement prescribed fires as efforts to reduce fuels and threats to communities throughout the state of Idaho. Josh?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, and for the Department of Lands, we have a very active prescribed fire program. Our prescribed fire program is directly related to hazardous fuel abatement, more so from logging operations that generate logging slash. But this spring was actually pretty conducive for us being able to achieve a pretty large number of acres successfully being burned, and a large number of fuels, especially when you look at it from a tonnage standpoint, being removed from the landscape. Those areas where all the agencies are able to put prescribed fire on the ground really buys us huge dividends during fire season, provides fuel breaks for us, and places where a wildfire gives our firefighters an opportunity to make a stand and have some success in stopping the spread of wildfires.
Thank you all. I have one more question. I'm sorry to be the one who's asking a lot of questions. But one more is just as specific, and maybe this is to Ben, perhaps. How concerned are you, particularly when you look at the drought and really narrowing down into the Wood River Valley? Is that a particular area of concern? And if so, how would burn scars from previous large fires in those regions and in those communities? We know of Castle Rock, or was Castle Peak? Can't remember the name of them. And then the other one that was in 2013, Beaver Creek. What does that look like, I guess?
Yeah, can you remind me again which particular area were you talking about?
The Wood River Valley, the Sun Valley area, basically.
Yeah, certainly. So, to kind of answer your first question, or your last question first, past fire footprints definitely do provide us an opportunity to engage fire. Oftentimes, more recently burned areas have not regrown vegetation and are not as readily available to burn. Of course, that depends on how severely they burned in the first place. Paradoxically, though, those same landscapes, if they burned, especially at high intensity and left snags and standing material that provides a threat to firefighters, a hazard to them working in that area, it can also have a negative effect because it's just not safe to put firefighters into some of those locations because of those hazards. And so it's kind of this difficult to say point around, there's a positive effect to having a recent fire that would slow a fire spread, lessen its intensity, but also could potentially cause some safety hazards that make it difficult for firefighters to do their work. Specifically there on the Sawtooth National Forest, in and around Sun Valley and Ketchum, we do have some concerns around this season. As you saw on some of the maps that were displayed, that is the center point, if you will, of the drought in the state of Idaho. And we've already been seeing fires burning abnormally well, higher intensities, spreading faster than they normally would in those areas, especially at higher elevations, places that typically wouldn't be available to burn for 4 to 6, maybe even 8 weeks from now. And we're already getting fires in those areas. So it's something definitely that we're aware of and are taking precautions around.
Thank you. That's my last question.
Thank you, Frankie. Again, if anybody else wants to ask a question verbally, just raise your hand using the button at the bottom of your screen. Ken, do we have any additional questions in the Q&A? And I'm going to pop on the screen right now a list of the presenters, so you have that information as well in case you didn't catch it in the chat.
Okay, Jennifer, we do have a few more questions in the Q&A, and one's from Sophia, and it's a good question for Josh. Talk about the fire danger from sparklers and other ground kinds of fireworks rather than aerials.
That's a great question, and I'd just reiterate, the fireworks that most are sold as kid friendly. I would go back to be smart about where you're using those. Open areas, big gravel pits, paved parking lots, and disposal. Those fireworks, they oftentimes remain hot for a significant amount of time after they've done doing the pretty thing that they do. They still pose a threat, and it is extremely prudent for the adults to take those fireworks and douse them in water before trying to dispose of them in the appropriate receptacle. But any of those fireworks in a forest fuels type poses a threat. Sparks are coming off of those sparklers, the little ground flowers. They move around and get showers of sparks. And if there's flammable material around them, we have to encourage people to be extremely careful and make sure there's no flammable material near that area.
Okay, thanks, Josh. A question now from Randy Hall. wondering what is the logic behind banning fireworks in many areas throughout the state, but we still see them for sale in those banned areas. Let's see, Josh, that might be a good one for you.
Well, I would put it out there like this. We can only control what we can control. Different jurisdictions and authorities have their own rules and statutes in place. And you have that option and that right to purchase those where they are for sale legally. And the best that we can do is just encourage people to use those in places where it's been deemed safe, and to be smart about how they're going about doing that. We don't have control, like I said, in the places where they're being sold legally. And we count upon the public as emergency responders to be smart about what they're doing and to be aware of their surroundings when they're enjoying their fireworks.
Thank you. Sophia follows up, specifically, do you recommend not using ground fireworks this year? Josh, it sounds like you answered that. We just encourage people to use fireworks only in safe areas and to be very smart about how they're being used and to dispose of used fireworks properly, which means douse them first.
That's correct. And to make sure that they've checked with their local authorities on bans and restrictions that are in place to make sure that they are in compliance with their local laws and ordinances.
Okay, thank you, Josh. I guess it's last call for questions. I don't believe there's any in the Q&A, and that we haven't answered, and I don't see anybody else's hand up. Oh, we got Eric Barker. Okay, Eric, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute.
All right, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
All right, this is sort of a Hail Mary question, so I apologize in advance. We had quite a lightning burst come through last night, and I'm seeing a lot of smoke checks and initial fires in the Grangeville and Blue Mountain dispatch centers. And I don't know that you would have any information yet, but just wondering if that's looking like it might be a significant event as far as fire starts go.
So I can speak for the Department of Lands and our resources that are in that area. Like you said, we have seen a number of notifications. There are a couple of confirmed fires, but at this point, it's too soon to tell if there's anything significant going on out there. The best thing to do is to wait and see as the day heats up, and if we get wind out there that may bring any of those strikes to life and make them visible, then we'll know. But right now, for the most part, once a thundercell or a thunderstorm has moved through, it's kind of a waiting game to see what the impact is going to be on the landscape.
Thank you, Josh. Ben or Dennis, did you have anything to add to that, or Nick even?
I don't have anything particular to add. As Josh said, a lot of this is preliminary and we're just now getting the reports back in. So we will have more information later on if you want to check that.
You bet.
All right, thank you. Eric, did you have any additional questions?
I'm all set, thank you.
All right. Okay, so again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them into the Q&A or raise your hand. If not, we are coming upon an hour, and we just really so appreciate everyone joining us today. If you do have any additional questions or need more information, please feel free to get in touch with me. I don't think I ever did get around to popping my contact information into the chat, but I'm thinking you have it, but I'll pop it in now anyway. But probably the easiest email address in the world to remember, it's jenniferjones@blm.gov. And I'll pop my phone number in there as well. So if you have any additional questions or need more information, let us know. And again, I mentioned we will send out a news release this afternoon, and we will email that to you directly because we have your email addresses. And otherwise, again, thank you so much for joining us today and for helping us get this really critical information out to the public about the fire conditions that we are facing and what they can do to help us prevent any large severe wildfires occurring in our state. And have a great rest of your Thursday and into the holiday weekend, and have a happy 4th of July, everybody. Thanks again so much for being with us today.